Welcome, everybody, to this Thursday evening class. School for A Course in Miracles. We're going to be starting Ending Our Resistance to Love. Ending Our Resistance to Love. One of the Ken Wapnick's little books. If you have it, great. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. Just listen along. Wanted to go over a few things first before we get into the book. This really weird thing happened. Well, a lot of weird things happened today. Whenever we start a new class, weird things happen. And one of the weird things that happened was Lynn Corona had a one-on-one session with Barbera's, and just when she started her session with Barb, this seminar came on that I didn't even remember on her computer. It was a whole seminar we did on resistance way back in 2020. I didn't remember it. It was like 3 hours long. So Lynn came in and she has no idea why that came up. It just started playing. She goes, "I can't get you off here. You got to get, this recording off off her session with Barb." And so it was just really weird. I mean, it just came up out of nowhere. So all these things about resistance. Resistance keeps coming up every day, but all these things about resistance came up. Like that whole website post that I had way back when about resistance also. Unrecognized resistance to letting Jesus love us. And that sort of came up out of nowhere too this morning, which I wound up sending out again, just as kind of as a refresher for what we'll be looking at and what we're always dealing with. We're always dealing with unrecognized resistance to God's love. Does my sound okay, by the way, so far? Alrighty. Let's see. There's a poem that Ken will touch upon briefly in here. It's called The Diver, and it's by Friedrich Schiller, I think. Anyway, I found the poem online. I put it on our website if you want to check that out at some point during these classes. The Diver by Schiller, and it's on our Thursday night class post. So find Thursday night classes, and that whole poem is listed on there. It's pretty long. It's pretty dramatic. Ken only touches upon it briefly when he's discussing it towards the end of this book. Another great, another very great resource. So way back when, I think it was 1990s, Ken started sending out newsletters, Lighthouse newsletters every few months or so. And I don't know how long he continued it, for a long time. And they eventually put together, and it was on topics that Ken thought needed to be addressed, things that were coming up for course students that he felt like he had to talk about in a somewhat formal way in terms of actual printing it out. And so they collected all those newsletters that he put out since the early 1990s, and they put it in what they call From the Lighthouse, an Anthology. And this is available from Foundation for A Course in Miracles. I forgot how much it cost. Well worth it. Certainly as a resource for any kind of topic you want to look up. It's all in there. And including the Lighthouse newsletter on resistance that he did replicate in this little book in the back. And we'll get to that also. Yeah, that's enough resources for now. So when we're talking about, it's not just resistance that's a problem. It is. It is a problem. But it's the unrecognized resistance that we call something else that really keeps us stuck, keeps us trapped in not feeling peace and not feeling love and not being aware of Jesus in any given moment. And so If it's unrecognized, what the Course is trying to get us to do, what the process of forgiveness is trying to get us to do, is recognize it and become aware of it. And as we do that, ask for help to lay down that resistance. Ask for Jesus's help to to kind of let go of our death grip that we have on that resistance. But like most resistances, like most addictions, we don't even call it addiction. We just think it's normal. We think resistance to God's love is normal, but we don't call it resistance. So unrecognized resistance is really the issue 99% of the time. We call it something else. And so the process of forgiveness begins to help us look at what we're hiding from ourselves, essentially. And when Jesus is talking about this unrecognized resistance in the Course, he only uses the word resistance a few times, but he does use words like hidden. Hidden, he likes that word. He uses it about 250 times throughout the whole Course. And we're hiding our resistance from ourselves and calling it something else. Another word he uses occasionally, not as much as hidden or hiding, is secrets. We keep secrets from ourselves. One of the big secrets we keep from ourselves is that we have this whole internal experience going on all the time, to where we're either choosing the ego as our teacher, or we're choosing the Holy Spirit as our guide, as our teacher. And usually about 99% of the time also, when we're choosing the ego as our teacher, it's unrecognized. We just think we're walking through our day being quote unquote normal, being concerned about all the crazy stuff we get concerned about as bodies. So not only is that choice for the ego internally unrecognized most of the time when we're choosing the ego, but also the whole mind experience is unrecognized. We don't even know we have a mind, much less a choice between two different teachers in our mind. So hidden and hiding, we hide from ourselves that we have a mind. We hide from ourselves, certainly, that the ego is dictating our day. And then we also hide from ourselves that there's a Holy Spirit that can show us a way out of all the craziness, out of all the non-peaceful drama we continually seem to have. Another word that he uses is unaware. Not so many times, about 36 times in the Course, that we're unaware of what the problem is, and we certainly are unaware of what the solution is. Unrecognized a few times, but he uses the flip sides of those words a lot. For example, aware, he uses the word aware, becoming aware that we have a mind, becoming aware that we have a choice. He uses that word aware 300 times in the Course. So a lot. And then the big word that he just loves, he can't use enough of, is the word recognize. Recognize is in the Course 700 times. Is what the Course is really all about. Recognizing that we have a mind, recognizing there is a choice, recognizing our resistance to recognizing, if you will. So that gives a little background in terms of the words themselves and how they're used throughout the A Course in Miracles. I wanted to, let's see, I'm working towards a meditation here, don't let me forget it. Wanted to look at the back cover first, the back cover. And Len Altman, you feel like reading the back for us, please?
Sure, be happy to. Although the term resistance appears infrequently in A Course in Miracles, it is nonetheless a key concept in students learning mind-changing lessons of forgiveness that are the Course's central teaching. Indeed, it is the only concept that can satisfactorily explain a phenomenon experienced by most students at some point in their work with the Course. I was going to say, it feels like at every moment in their work with the Course. This is the paradox of sincerely attempting to learn and live its principles under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, while experiencing the ongoing frustration of not doing just that. This paradox is the topic explored in this book, which consists of an edited transcription of a talk given to a group of students by Kenneth Wapnick, supplemented with 2 articles co-authored with his wife, Gloria, that appeared in the Foundation's newsletter, The Lighthouse. The focus is on the many forms of resistance and their basis in the fear of love. Freud's valuable insights are discussed, along with Jesus's role in helping us look without judgment at our investment in maintaining the ego's thought system, the miracle that resolves the paradox. We are ready to look more closely at the ego's thought system because together we have the lamp that will dispel it.
Any other comments besides the first one, Lynn?
Yeah, I was going to say, I love this. The last sentence is particularly meaningful. Just when I think about how there's no greater practice of learning to ask Jesus for help than the prevalence of resistance the entire time. So, I mean, it's really, and he's always there whenever I'm ready, and never goes anywhere when I'm not ready. So thanks.
There you go. It's that simple. Thanks, Lynn. Very good. Anybody else, any comments on so far about any of this stuff that I've said? Oh, Jerry's got Mimi's iPad. Mimi Rose. Jerry, where the heck are you?
Elko, Nevada.
Oh my gosh.
I know it's yeah.
Is
What do I
Jesus,
say?
does
Yeah,
Jesus?
he's here. He's here.
Oh, okay.
He's here. Yeah. Yeah, he spends a lot of time in Nevada.
What? No, I'll leave it alone. Okay. I meant to give you the book. I hate for you riding around out there bookless.
I've got the book.
No, not that little one. I meant the real one, the big
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I thought about that too, but we rushed out of there the other night. So, yeah.
Alrighty. Well, have a safe trip. A holy
Thank you.
trip.
Thank you.
Alrighty. A real world trip. Very good. Alrighty. Anybody else? Any comments so far? Everybody's okay with resisting? Everybody's aware of resisting? All right. Let's actually open to the front of the book for a little bit. I'm in the preface. It's Roman numeral page 7, VII. The preface, VII. And Bears, you feel like reading a paragraph or two, please. Were you here early? Were you here earlier, Barb, when I was talking about you?
Yes, I was hearing it.
Okay.
I thought that was very timely. I thought you had recorded this ahead of time and we're just gonna be.
I was in shock.
Oh, it's a very appropriate subject.
Yeah.
All right, so the preface on page Roman numeral 7, is that?
Please. Yeah, a couple paragraphs, if you would.
All right, you just tell me when to stop.
All right.
In July of 2003, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I went to Atlanta to give a 4-day class on the journey from the ego self to the true self, and a weekend workshop on living in the world, prison or classroom. Before the week of formal classes began, Olivia Scott, my host for the week, asked me to give a 2-hour talk for one of her regular classes on A Course in Miracles. The group had been going through my book on the 4 obstacles to peace, the journey home, and was up to chapter 11, where I discussed the fear of redemption from chapter 13 in the text. Olivia asked if I could address this section, which I did. The session was taped, though so informally that it was not salvageable for public distribution. Yet one of the participants, Sandy Aycock, was able to hear well enough to make a transcript of my talk. Olivia sent me the transcription with the suggestion it might be made into a book. And when I read Sandy's excellent and faithful transcription, I agreed. I was impressed with the coherent statement the meeting provided on resistance and its undoing through the process of looking at it with Jesus, combined with 2 articles on the same subject that appear in our foundation's lighthouse. This seemed like a helpful publication on this very important theme that goes to the heart of the practice of A Course in Miracles. The talk has been edited for ease of reading, and some points have been expanded, along with a few passages from A Course in Miracles added to supplement the discussion. The informality of the meeting has been retained. However, along with some of the questions that were asked in the course of my talk. Thus, what you're about to read is a discussion of the important theme of resistance to letting go of one's ego, one of the central blocks to our learning and practicing Jesus' message in A Course in Miracles. The articles from the Lighthouse elaborate on this theme. The first article, Resistance, How One Studies A Course in Miracles Without Really Learning It, expands on Freud's contribution to the understanding of resistance, with special reference to one's study of A Course in Miracles. The second, The Diver, uses Schiller's wonderful poem of the same name to delve more deeply into the source of our resistance, our fear of looking at the ego's thought system of guilt and hate, behind which is the true resistance of remembering the love of ourself.
That's good. That's good, Barb. Any thoughts about that? Any of that, Barb?
No. Let's
Yep.
dive in.
Let's dive. Remember what was it? Oh, Run Silent, Run Deep, the movie about the submarine. Classic war movie, classic submarine movie. I already forgot what I was going to mention. So that resistance seminar, I actually put it on. If you get the links for the replays for the last few weeks, it's at the top of that list. the seminar we did back in, I think it was October 2020 on resistance. So if you can't get enough of resistance or talking about it, the seminar is posted on I mean, it's not so recent, obviously, but it's posted on the list of latest replays from the last couple of weeks. Yeah. Now, I'm jumping around. As an opening meditation, I want to go to page 59 in the book. Page 59, and it's chapter 5, really. It's a 2-page chapter. It's called Conclusion, if you're doing this on the Kindle. Chapter 5, Conclusion. And Ken's going to talk about one of the poems that Helen wrote about her relationship with Jesus. And it's a real love-hate poem. Like all our relationships with Jesus, when we're flip-flopping in and out of ego, they're really a love-hate relationship. Usually the hate's kind of unacknowledged, unrecognized hate, once again, is really the problem. And we'll get into that. So the first couple of paragraphs are just talking about the poem itself, and then finally we'll read Bright Stranger on page 60 as an opening meditation. But first, page 59, if you would. Rosemary, you feel like reading that, please? The first couple of paragraphs, or that one big long paragraph.
Sure, thank you. As a closing, I will read the poem Bright Stranger from the Gifts of God. This is one of the poems that reflects Helen's love-hate relationship with Jesus. Here, more love-fear. She describes how she tries to shut him out, fearful of his love. That is why I discussed this poem in the chapter, The Fear of Redemption, in the Journey Home. Helen's ambivalence with Jesus is indeed reflective of all our relationships, and specifically our relationship with him. the love, hate, and fear that if we listen to his voice, take his hand, and let his love into our hearts, everything will change. The only way to protect this self from any meaningful change is to protect ourselves against him. Thus, our resistance to forgiveness is reflected in our resistance to A Course in Miracles and to Jesus himself. However, the good news, reflective of the original good news of the atonement, is that our attempts to keep his love away all come to naught. In the end, the attraction of love for love proves stronger than the attraction of guilt for fear. Bright Stranger therefore speaks to and for all of us, as it reminds us that our resistance to Jesus' love will fall before his soft appeal, and we will remember his love and find ourselves.
That's good. Thanks, Rosemary. Any comments about that long paragraph?
Yeah, I can really relate to Helen here. That incredibly strong resistance. It's like I just want to run, and it's like I know it's futile. Where am I running to? Where am I going to go? He's waiting for me.
He's
With
everywhere.
open arms. It's like, yeah. Really, it's like they're just, it's just silly to keep running and hiding, and it's like, yeah, ambivalence is a good word for that.
Yeah, that's good. I keep hearing the words of the song. Who you going to run to when it all falls down? What song is that, Stephen?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Anybody know? Who you going to run to when it all falls down? Who you going to da 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 da? Yeah, that one. Anyway, we'll figure it out. It'll hit me at 3:00 in the morning. Well, Jesus, of course. That's where I always run when it all falls down. Thanks, Rosemary. Maya, iPhone 2707. Maya, you want to read Bright Stranger? And I'll be quiet for a little bit.
Well, I'd love to. Thanks, Tim.
Sure.
Bright Stranger. Strange was my love to me, for when he came, I did not know him. And he seemed to me to be but an intruder on my peace. I did not see the gifts he brought, nor hear his soft appeal. I tried to shut him out with locks and keys that merely fell away before his coming. I could not escape the gentleness with which he looked at me. I asked him in unwillingly and turned away from him. But he held out his hand and asked me to remember him. In me, an ancient name began to stir and break across my mind in gold. The light embraced me deep in silence till he spoke the word. And then at last, I recognized my Lord.
Thanks. We'll get quiet for a little bit. I'll bring us back. And gently come back. It was heart. All you Northwesterners should know that. Heart came out of Seattle, the rock group. Who are you going to run to when it all falls down? Yeah, very good. Alrighty. Any comments, Maya, about any of that?
Yes, indeed, Tim. Yeah, I've been, since the beginning of the meeting today, thinking, read a post on the website about resistance and how it's everywhere in all of us. And I have a rather chilling image that I really want to share with you, that before the course, I thought ego was just normal. It's ego is what everybody has, and we all judge and we all compare and we all do all that stuff that makes us unhappy. But that's what we do as humans. And it seems like we have good reason for it. And now I feel like I'm in the place where I see for a long time how bonkers ego mind is. Just totally bonkers. And it dominates, in the world, and it dominates in the world of form. And now I recognize that there is a sane part in my mind. And so I have this ominous feeling, Tim, that the ego is watching me. Kind of like, remember the movie, I can't remember the name of it, where the actor does this with his eyes and then he goes like this, I'm watching you. And so, the sense that I get is that ego is watching me to make sure I don't let go too much the resistance, because if I do, all hell is going to guarantee that all hell will break loose. And I'm experiencing some real unease from that. So that's what I wanted to share. This is a big deal.
Uh-oh, you got me nervous now. And in one sense, rightfully so. I mean, it's the foundation of who we think we are. It's the foundation of, we're not just resisting Jesus. We're resisting ourselves. This is an identity crisis. I don't want to see who and what we truly are. Who and what I truly am, and who and what we all truly are. Because it pulls the rug on all of my, my craziness as a Tim.
Yeah, and what I wanted to add to that, Tim, is that I don't want the ego anymore, and the ego knows it. The ego's on to me. And that is, I have experienced ego being very vicious. So it's, all that conscious guilt is really, it's invested on keeping it stockpiled or projected, and so as it begins to get healed, I don't see ego going lightly. So that's my take.
Okay, that's enough, Maya. I gotta turn my anxiety level down here a little. That's good. So, and it's true. It's what's the range is from slight irritation to outright rage. So, but the good news is, that's the bad news. The good news is, at any point on that scale, since it's all nothing, if I just step back for a moment inside and ask Jesus for help with the very specific thing it is I'm freaking out about, meaning, help me, Jesus, help see you, or whoever it is involved in that situation the way he does, it begins to pull the rug on all that angst, on whatever the ego is going to throw at us. It just all becomes a non-issue. It just all begins to evaporate. It's the same process to wherever we're at on that scale of anxiety, on that scale of slight irritation to crazy rage. It's always the same process, and it's always the same gentle, loving guidance of, I'll help you look at this. I'll help you look at the other guy. I'll help you look at you. and then you'll be okay. Whatever goes down in that whole range of feelings. Yeah. So that's the good news. Thank God there's good news. Otherwise, none of us would do this stuff. Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Maya. Very good. Alrighty. So, I don't know. Had this inclination that we should read the newsletter first on resistance. I'm on page 63 in this book. It's I think it's part of the appendix in the back. First thing in the appendix, resistance, how one studies A Course in Miracles without really learning it, page 63. Irene, you want to read some? Please.
Sure. Thank
All
you.
right. All right.
Resistance, how one studies A Course in Miracles without really learning it. Although the term resistance appears infrequently in A Course in Miracles, it is nonetheless a key concept in the process of students learning the mind-changing lessons of forgiveness that are the Course's central teaching. Indeed, it is the only concept that can satisfactorily explain a phenomenon experienced by most, if not all, students of A Course at some point or another in their work with it. This is the seeming paradox. On one hand, of consciously and most sincerely attempting to learn, live, and practice the Course principles under the guidance of Jesus or Holy Spirit, while on the other hand, experiencing the ongoing frustration of not doing just that. Most spiritual seekers are familiar with the famous words of St. Paul, who exclaimed out of this same sense of frustration, "For the good that I would do not, but evil which I would not that I do." Romans 7:19. This article explores the issue of resistance in Course students' efforts to put into practice its principles of forgiveness as taught by their inner teacher, the Holy Spirit.
Oh, that's plenty. Any comment, Irene?
Yeah. I think the lessons, and I think of the workbook, has been so, very important to me for the mind changing, for the rearranging, if you will, of the mind that it has been totally programmed, seemingly. And as we're doing the deprogramming of that, and also I'm guessing constant confusion for all of us, certainly for me, of taking letting a breath out, and then here I go again. Here it is again. So that we resist. The resistance is certainly there. And I'm thinking from myself and people I've been with, the idea, not the idea, but just the resistance to anything new, anything that's not familiar. And all those secrets that we're familiar and attached to are very hard to unearth.
Yeah.
And be conscious of. But it's the best practice for me. I'll put it that way.
As you were talking, the phrase, don't resist the resistance. In other words, acknowledge it. Let
Exactly.
it come to my awareness, and then ask for Jesus' help in dealing with whoever it is I think I have a problem with. Yeah. It always goes back to our brother on every other page, if not every page in the course. The way we deal with the resistance, the way we deal with our egos, the way we deal with forgiveness is we start with our brother where we've put all the guilt anyway. So whatever it is I'm laying on my brother, that becomes the doorway back in that moment. That opens up everything. Yeah.
Exactly. Taking it, bringing it home is kind of what I call it. And I'm saying home more informed than
Yeah,
in
right.
our real home.
And one of the ways my resistance is manifesting right now is see how nice that print looks? It's like, yeah, normal print, right? Well, I turn the page and it's like, oh my God, everything's shimmering on these 2 pages, like the print's all over the place. It's like, I thought it was me. Like, oh, I really don't want to see this.
That's a good metaphor for what goes on.
Yeah, right. Talk about rocking the boat.
Right.
But anyway, thanks, Irene. Bruce, you had
You're
some
welcome.
rolls.
Yeah, I was thinking about that quote that it's such a great one in the beginning of chapter 30. It seems to apply here is do not, don't fight yourself. And the another, I guess, almost the course platitude of it may be, it may seem foolproof, but it's not God proof. So we're all going to figure this out sooner or later when we just wear ourselves out enough to we're just like, okay, enough. I'll try it. Thanks, Holy Spirit. Anyway, but that dude, I was thinking about that. Don't fight yourself. And well, if this is a pure non-dual course, then don't fight yourself also means everyone and everything, because that's yourself. Right, anyway, so it just kind of clicked for me. Thanks.
Yeah, that's good. I was thinking, especially when I found that website post again this morning by accident, that what you said the other day that Jeff Siebert said, he said, because somebody was asking about, is all I have to do is recognize that I'm being resistant. And then Jeff goes, well, yes, sort of. That's the first step. But then you might want to consider letting it go, too. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. And then I was thinking, well, that whole post was about that. And I didn't remember all that stuff that's in the post on unrecognized resistance. That finally we recognize it, but then you might want to let it go. You might want to ask for help to look at it and then deal with whoever it is you're laying the resistance on, because I mean the repository for our guilt, the justification for our being resistant without calling it that is always what we think our brother is doing to us or what they're not doing. And we're certainly not calling them our brother at that point. But whatever it is they're doing or not doing that we think is pushing our buttons, that's the doorway back once again. So it's a very immediate thing. It's a very real thing. On Tuesday night, we were talking about the different ways we, we deal with the darkness. And one person was talking about, they talked about, they would meditate. Go meditate for like a number of days, sit quietly for a while. And the darkness, the pain would manifest. They would realize how, in this case, the resistance, but the pain would come into their awareness and they would look at it and be okay with it. And then we were talking about how psychotherapy helps also do that sort of thing. And then one lady had taken ayahuasca, which is a whole different, if you're familiar with ayahuasca, it brings the demons up and then you let go of the demons and everything is fine. Well, the Course's approach is your brother right in front of you. You take your brother that's right in front of you, and instead of eating him and crucifying him, you look at him in a different light. You look at him with Jesus's help to see maybe he's not the problem at all. And one finger pointing at him and 3 fingers pointing back at me. Maybe whatever it is I think he's doing isn't what he's doing. Well, he's probably doing it, but what's that got to do with me? Why am I freaking out about it? So it's always that. And then Jesus will gently walk us through that process. But it's so immediate. I mean, it's like you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go to the Amazon and take ayahuasca. I mean, you can. It's kind of an interesting idea. I mean, all those things are good. Sitting quietly is good for a few days. Psychotherapy is good. ayahuasca, it sounds pretty entertaining, but I mean, the Jesus' approach here is just simply your brother that's right in front of you. He's the doorway back in any given instant, the holy instant, right now, right this second. Yeah. Even on the screen, just pick out any of these holy instants. You got 22 up there. Just pick out a holy instant. They're the doorway back. You kind of touch that little picture and all of heaven will open up. They're all the doorways back. Yeah. Even cats are the doorway back.
I was going to say 22, but you haven't counted the animals.
Oh, I was counting animals. Of the humankind. Yeah. Alrighty. Any thoughts? Go ahead, Abe.
Yeah, I was reading Journey Through the Text the other day, and Ken was talking about the the difference between the wrong mind and the right mind, and he said that we are in the right mind when we can look at the wrong mind without judgment. And I think resistance is just simply a manifestation of the wrong mind. So if we can look at the resistance without judgment, in fact, we are on our way to letting it go. So, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, there's all kinds. Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Abe. There's all kind of ways to put this in words. Like, I'm resistant to looking at. I even have a wrong mind, much less what's going on in it. Much less admitting I don't want to do that anymore. I mean, if I'm really internally buying into the whole story of sin, guilt, fear, and death, and horror, and all the other terrible words that go on in here, if I'm buying into that, and I'm not stepping outside of it and looking at it from this vantage point and realizing that there's a resistance, the way that resistance works is, first of all, in the world, we don't even realize we have a mind, much less a right mind. But we don't even know that the whole world is coming from the wrong mind, from this choice to believe in separation. And then we have to blame the way we're feeling on somebody in the world. And then we kind of work through that resistance to realizing there is a wrong mind. And then when we get here, the resistance there is to step outside of this and look back at it with Jesus and realize it's not a big deal. Here, I thought you were the problem. Here, I'm absolutely sure I'm the home of evil, darkness, and sin. Lesson 93. And so there's incredible resistance at that point. I mean, this is where the real resistance is. To be willing to ask Jesus for help at that point, to step outside of that identification. We're the home of evil, darkness, and sin. I'm the home of sin, guilt, and fear. And look at this through the eyes of the Holy Spirit. Look at myself the way Jesus helped me see you. You weren't the problem. To see, to let go of that resistance, to allow Jesus to help me see I'm not the problem either. There is no problem. Yeah. Thanks, Abe. Yeah. Anybody else? Lynn Altman.
I just was looking at the chart and thinking about how resistance is really a reflection of that original refusal to accept God's version of reality. And, resistance really is the mechanism by which we keep on reinforcing that we made the right decision to leave. And somehow thinking of it like that for me right this minute takes a little of the sting out of it. It's, oh yeah, there's method in that madness. And as I, recognize I'm the decision maker and I'm seeing the fallout of having decided against heaven, it's making more sense that maybe I can look at that mechanism. It's not a personal fault. It's a fault. It's not the evil, darkness, and sin. It's a mechanism. And so, I just really, it's like that's a way to look at it with less judgment than I usually have, because the judgment makes the resistance about me and my terrible, dastardly self. Whereas, it's just, it's a tool. It's a tool of the insane wrong mind. So thanks.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Lynn. Dave Van Dyke, don't leave. I got to ask you a question. Dave, come back. Dave, what did the Borg say about resistance in Star Trek? You're on mute, Dave. We got to know what the answer is.
Resistance is futile.
Yeah. Jesus says the same thing, too, but he says it in a much nicer way than the Borg did. Yeah. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for coming back to give us the revelation.
My doorbell rang. I don't care who's there. You guys are more important. So
It's Jesus. You better go answer it, for God's sake. Go ahead, Bruce.
I was just going to say you can spell futile two different ways. It's F-U-T-I-L-E or F-E-U-D-A-L. Either way works. The ego's quite the feudal lord, demanding payment for every little thing. Right?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Bruce. Javiera, are you still in Colorado Springs? Good God, girl. You don't want to go home, do you? I knew they were going to make you a nun down there.
No, I am not there. I'm in a hotel.
Oh, you got out.
Yeah, so I have a question about resistance. I am just thinking about the times that I am aware of my resistance, and I'm thinking about sometimes when I feel that I am resisting something, it's because I am not ready yet to leave that resistance away. I mean, to accept, to see my brother as a sinless. I am not ready. I don't want to. So that resistance is somehow protecting me in my wrong mind, but it's because I am not ready. So there is a useful thing there. I don't know, what do you think?
Kinda. So one of the flip things we say to each other when in 12-step meetings is when we're hanging on to whatever crazy thing we're hanging on to, including resistance, like and understandably the ego wants to hang on to it, but then somebody being smart in a 12-step meeting will say, well, how's that working for you? I mean, at some point we realize this is just not a lot of fun. I mean, resistance has kept us, and certainly there's a lot of justification for resistance growing up, becoming a mature person, the whole ego trip. I mean, we all had to learn how to define ourselves, defend ourselves, that identity. But at some point, we realized the price we're paying for it. And like Jeff Siebert said to that guy at some point, when we realize the price, at some point we might want to let it go, actually let the resistance go. So yeah, it's helpful. It's really, really helpful. In fact, it's part of the process to realize how resistant we are. And then it's part of the process to let it go. So you're halfway there. That's exciting. That's good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I'm sure there'll be more, not more about it later. Not just more resistance, but yeah, more about it. All right. All right. Erica, you want to read some, please?
Sure. Where are we at?
I think top of page 64, as with so many other areas, I think. Does that sound right?
Yes.
All right.
As with so many other areas that touch on the process of healing in A Course in Miracles, the work of Sigmund Freud offers us many parallels that underscore the importance of understanding the dynamics of the problem and its solution. Very early in his psychoanalytic work, Freud observed that his patients were not improving, despite the insights he was offering them as to the cause of their neurosis. It eventually dawned on him that the problem laid in the fact that the patients did not want to get better, a dynamic he termed resistance. The therapeutic situation led me at once to the theory that by means of my of my
Psychical, I think, but
psychical, thank you, i.e. psychological work, I had to overcome a physical force in the patients, which was opposed to the pathogenic ideas becoming conscious. This work of overcoming resistances is the essential function of analytic treatment. Studies on hysteria with J. Brewer, 1893, volume 2, page 268. Introductory lectures on psychoanalysis, 1917, volume 16, page 451.
wow, that was tough. You did a good job.
Yes, sorry for the pronunciation of some of those words.
You did all right. Any comments or questions about any of that?
No, I think it just relates to one of the first pages in this book that I was reading today. Just like I think what happens a lot of times is that we pay a therapist to tell me that I'm right, either for my resistance or either in my, craziness or in my delusion in my mind. Like it just maybe it feels good to tell myself that I'm looking for help, but I'm actually, a lot of times I'm actually just looking for someone to tell me, yeah, you're right. For you, if I'm in a victim condition, I want that therapist or that book. Yes, like you're right by suffering, things like that.
Yeah. And then we pay somebody to do that.
Yeah.
Or we find a friend and we convince them we're right about whatever it is we're freaking out about.
Right, the false empathy.
Yeah, it's the way of things.
So that's what we do with the course. I think that's what it's saying at the beginning of the book, that we change the meaning. We basically interpret the course in a way that it can make me feel that I do understand it and that I don't have to change.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Thanks, Erica. Yeah. There's God, I guess it's about 20 years old now. There was a series, I think PBS did it, on Freud, and the guy who played Perot, I can't think of his name, the detective, he also played Freud in that series. It's a really good series. Really looks at Freud's day-by-day life, all the blocks it's a dramatic portrayal of his life and his relationship with his wife, and all the way up until the time he moves to London, and he's got whatever he's got, really bad cancer, I think, and yeah. But it's a really interesting look at the things he was discovering for the first time, and one of the giant ones was these guys are coming to me, paying me, and they don't want to hear what I'm telling them. They don't want to hear that they're resistant. They don't want to hear that they're hanging on to these, internal guilt, if you will, however Freud was putting it. But just and in terms of these past relationships they had with their parents and with their families and et cetera, et cetera. They one part of them were actually paying him to help them, and another part of them he realized did not want help, were resistant to help, and that is that was huge. I mean, this is the beginning of all psychotherapy, psychology, like when really you don't want help. You don't want me to help you look at this stuff and let it go. But that's what Jesus is saying to us all the time, very patiently. He doesn't get frustrated. We were talking about Jesus' patience the other day. It's one of those things that's really annoying. He doesn't get impatient. Like I know I would. Come on, get on with the process here. Yeah. Thanks, Erica. All righty. Stephen, you want to read some? Please.
Yeah, but I was just listening. I don't know where we are.
65 at the top.
Indeed, in several places.
Yeah.
Cool. Here we go. Indeed, in several places in A Course in Miracles, Jesus lets us know that he knows that we will experience resistance to his teachings. We present a few of these, beginning with the statement from the Rules for Decision in chapter 30 of the text. And if you find resistance strong and dedication weak, you are not ready. You do not fight yourself. Repeatedly throughout the workbook for students, Jesus alerts us to our potential resistance to the radical ideas he is teaching. In fact, in the introduction itself, he states, some of the ideas the workbook presents you will find hard to believe, and others may seem to be quite startling. This does not matter. Remember only this. You need not believe the ideas, you need not accept them, and you need not even welcome them. Some of them you may actively resist. Keep going.
Sure.
One other example from the workbook. Your mind is no longer wholly untrained. You are quite ready to learn the form of exercise we will use today, but you may find that you will encounter strong resistance. The reason is very simple. While you practice in this way, you leave behind everything that you now believe and all the thoughts that you have made up. Properly speaking, this is the release from hell. Yet perceived through the ego's eyes, it is loss of identity and descent into hell.
Oh, that's plenty.
Oh, yeah. A few years ago, I wrote Insistence is Resistance, and I put it on my wall. A couple days ago, I thought this, and it was before I was thinking about this book. Every time a thought of God comes through, it comes through to all of us. And then I wrote, every time there's resistance, it affects all of us, all of us. I assume it would have to be that way. For me, the way I see this, resistance is defensiveness of separation, of defensiveness, so that we can keep doing this. What we're defending, defensiveness doesn't look like resistance. I mean, sickness doesn't look like resistance. Special love, especially special love, it doesn't. It looks like a nice thing and a kind thing. Special hate, it doesn't look like resistance. It looks like, it's a victimizer thing, but it looks like, hey, they deserve it, and I'm innocent, so I push my guilt out on them. Anything that we're idols, magic, all of that stuff. Anytime we're defending our separation, we're resisting, and we're calling it something else. But for me, there's a point where it's never about the words. I'm using all these words talking, and I'm hoping it helps me, or just helps in general for all of us. But when my resistance goes, it has nothing to do with me. It just happens. It's like a holy instant or true perception or glimpses of reality, or those moments of atonement that we have. The miracles. It just happens. It has nothing to do. It has to do with my practice, but it has nothing to do with the work that I seem to be doing in the moment. Ego's coming at me full force on a regular basis. Resistance is futile, but also the board, they're relentless. That was the next thing they said, and so is the ego. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks. Yeah, that's good. That insistence is resistance. And then I was thinking, like, everything I do with my ego is resistance. Brushing my teeth with my ego is resistance. It doesn't look like it. It looks like I'm brushing my teeth. Like going to the store. If I do that with the ego, it has to be resistance. I'll make up stories about it. I'll make up victims and victimizers. Somebody will be in the way at the store. Somebody's moving too slow. They don't have what I want. I mean, it'll all be resistance. Resistance to seeing what the real problem is, where the real problem is. It has to be resistance. I'm resisting to seeing it's here and it's not in the world. And then I'm resistant to seeing that it's all made up anyway, the whole separation thing. But it's all, yeah, it's pretty wild. When you think about it that way, it's like, I'm resisting right now. I mean, working on the website, if I'm working on the website with my ego, if I'm giving a presentation on the course with my ego, it's got to be resistance. What else could it be? And then the whole thing gets flipped around. If I'm brushing my teeth with the Holy Spirit, if I'm going to the store with the Holy Spirit, if I'm giving a presentation with the Holy Spirit, all that resistance just falls away. And I'm seeing you and I'm seeing me and the way we truly are, or at least a reflection of the way we truly are as God's one son. Yeah. That's good. Thanks, Stephen. Bruce Brickman, what you thinking? You got all these body parts being replaced, right?
Yeah. How did you know I was thinking?
I could just see it. I felt it.
I find with my resistance, mostly is being in competition with God and everyone and everything. Instead of trying to understand that I want to be healed, I want to try and prove that I'm right. Prove the other person wrong. My momentum keeps going in that direction. I ask for help with the Holy Spirit, and then I find myself trying to prove him, dancing with him with the right and wrong. So how do I get out of that? You know, how do I let that go?
It's a really interesting way, to look at it. I'm going to add that to the list. Insistence is resistance, and competition is resistance. So in the world, I'm competing, obviously, with the people in the food store and everybody else. And in my mind, that idea that I'm competing with Jesus about who's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if he's right, then I didn't separate. But if I'm right, let me tell you,
Yeah.
I know I'm right.
I guess it's part of also an authority problem on my behalf that I have to realize that.
God, I'm glad you're the only one that does that, Bruce.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking.
That's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like it, but I mean, it's
just, I'm trying to wrap my head around this resistance thing. This is the first class. I'm being bombarded about all types of situations and how I constantly resist. I'm still wrapping my head around it. So
sure.
The discussion will continue.
Oh yeah, I'm sure in more ways than one. Yeah. Thanks, Bruce. All right.
Thanks, mate.
All righty. Susan, how you doing? You got any thoughts or questions or anything so far? Does this sound like crazy stuff? Is this crazy stuff?
No, I've been studying since 1998.
Oh.
It's that frustration of, and there's the resistance again. It's like I know where it is, I know what it is, and still I fight myself to let it go.
Yeah. Oh, it's adding to the list. Insistence is resistance. Competition is resistance. And what was it? Oh, frustration is now resistance. It's all resistance. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. That's pretty, very good. Thanks, Susan. All right. Hang in there. We'll get through it. One way or another.
I think one of the CDs I listen to go to sleep is one that Eckhart Tolle suggests, and I think it's called Resist Nothing, and it's just music. So keeps me from sleepwalking.
You don't do that, do you?
No.
What are you talking about? This is all this is all sleepwalking. Duh. So, oh, now I lost my train of thought. um, let's see. Oh, we got a little time. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Susan. Dave Dempsey, you want to read something, please?
Yes. Remind me where we left off.
I think we're at the top of page 66.
In the manual for teachers?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. In the manual for teachers, we find a similar statement from Jesus, alerting his students to the fear involved in accepting his teachings. In this case, it is the principle that the cause of sickness is found in the mind and not the body. The resistance to recognizing this is enormous because the existence of the world as you perceive it depends on the body being the decision maker. In the manual teachers, section 5. The resistance referred to in the above passage is directly related to the fear of losing our personal specialness and individual uniqueness, and letting go of which is the final step before one can awaken from the dream of separation. Resistance, the unconscious attempt to sabotage what alone will help, is so surprising as to be almost unbelievable, as Freud himself observed in this clever quasi-Platonic dialogue with himself, taken from the Question of the Lay Analysis, written in 1926. It will then be your fate to make a discovery for which you were not prepared, prepared. And what that may be, that you have deceived in your patient, that you cannot count in the slightest on his collaboration with the compliance, that he is ready to place every possible difficulty in the way of your common work. In a word, that he has no wish, whatever, to be cured. Well, that's the craziest thing you've ever told me yet, and I do not believe it either. The patient who is suffering so much, who complains so movingly about his troubles, who is making so great a sacrifice for the treatment, you say he has no wish to be cured. But of course, you do not mean what you say. Calm yourself. I do mean it. What I said was the truth, not the whole truth. No, not the whole truth, no doubt, but a very noteworthy part of it. The patient wants to be cured, but he also wants not to be. They, the patients, complain of their illness, but exploit it with their strength. And if someone tries to take it away from them, they defend it like the proverbial lioness in her young. Oh my God. I'm just sitting here and thinking about how much I've identified that I just love that victim role, and so aware of that, and catching myself in it so much lately. And then I was sitting here looking at the chart and thinking, well, the willingness to even look at that sort of gets me past the fear. And then the guilt with that, I don't like that feeling. So I'm sort of looking at that. And I just think it comes back down to that sin, my belief in sin. And therefore, because of all of that, that unworthiness comes in, that I just can't be that holy Son of God that the Course is telling me that I am. And so I don't even know where to go with it, but I just keep looking at it with Jesus. I just keep asking him to take my hand and keep walking me through it. And, the one thing that y'all have taught me is, for sure, when I used to catch myself doing that, I used to beat myself up pretty good about it. Why do you keep doing that to yourself? And I've moved more to the oops, there I go again, and just not taking it quite so seriously. And maybe that's what I just have to keep doing, but I'm just been so aware how I put myself in that situation constantly. And just from outside it, I'm seeing it so much. And it's like, there I go again. It's just like, and so that's what I'm devoted to, and I just haven't moved over for whatever reason yet to believing what he's telling me is my truth. and whatever that is, and how to ever even get there. I just have to keep forgiving myself for those crazy thoughts and forgiving those for what they didn't do to me, and being able to get back to that stillness and peace and looking at the truth exactly what it is. And maybe at some point, some more acceptance will come along, I mean, I've obviously accepted enough to be able to see what I'm doing. So I guess it's just, the fear of losing my identity. I think what it really comes down to is I don't know what to do without that. I've been in that role for so long. I'm terrified to let it go. So, yeah. So I don't know. One day at a time. one forgiveness at a time. I guess that's the only way I know to go at it. So unless somebody's got some great insight. The shortcut. Where's the shortcut?
Ayahuasca, Amazon River. Nah. Okay, I have a few comments. Go ahead, Lynn Altman.
I was looking at that sentence where it says the patient wants to be cured, but he also wants not to be. Well, he wants to be cured of his suffering, but he wants to be able to stay within the system that he knows. He has no idea that there's another way to be. Absolutely not. And I know when I came to the course, I knew it was the answer, but I was scared to death of what would have to change in me in order to receive the answer. And so the resistance is kind of that process of dragging my feet, trying to somehow retain some of what I thought I was, while trying to be a little open to what he's offering. And it sort of moderates the process. So it gives me time. I keep coming to that idea of a mechanism. It gives me time to really realize that it's the thoughts in my mind that are making me miserable, not the world. And I mean, it's just really exciting, because I think I have felt ashamed of being the kind of patient, the kind of student that doesn't want to be cured. I mean, that's like the most shameful thing that I can think of. And so it's helpful to realize it's because I don't know any better. I don't know that it's the thoughts in my mind that are making me sick. And that I'll be much better off when I learn that, and learn that I can change them and have everything, all the peace, all the joy, all the love that I've been missing and never knew. And so we do learn that those things that they're joyful. It's a joyful thing that we're going to be receiving. We learn to not be afraid of it over time, but it just takes a while. So it feels good to let go of some of that shame. Thanks.
That's good. Thanks, Lynn. I think it was at the retreat, I don't know, but at one point where we were talking about devotion, and we're you put these words together, they sound pretty crazy, but on one level, from an ego point of view, without admitting it, we're devoted to resistance. That's what we put on our altar. And the resistance is always, in its most simple way to describe it to ourselves, I think, is we're just simply resistant to having a relationship with Jesus right this second. It's always that. I mean, and since he's so loving and gentle and joyful and kind about it, to allow that in, it seems very threatening, but at the same time, it sounds really good. I mean, in that poem, Bright Stranger, she starts off with all the terror. Helen starts off with, I'm afraid to let you in. And then she kind of opens the door a little bit, and he doesn't freak her out. He comes in gently. He comes in lovingly. He comes in, sharing his joy with her. And she's like, well, this isn't so bad. So, I mean, that's what we're at its most simplest, even in terms of, we don't have to jump into we're just one self and we're all one big amoeba in the mind of God. but we just start with this simple relationship I seem to have as Tim with this figure called Jesus, and to be willing to see it not so threateningly. And the way I do that is I begin to ask him for help in dealing with whoever I think is a problem. Jesus, help me see whoever the way you see them. And in doing that, I begin to trust him. I begin to let him in. I begin to realize he's not judgmental. He's certainly not judging the other guy. And I begin to realize he's not judging me either. So it's this relationship we're trying to develop. It's the resistance we're trying to acknowledge that we have to having this gentle relationship with Jesus. And he's going to gently come in as we invite him to help us deal with our judgments. We'll hang out with him. It won't be so bad. And then, we'll be much more willing to let him come in more often. And eventually it unravels our whole crazy separated identity. But we don't have to worry about that now. We just start with where we think we are. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Lynn. Maya.
Yeah, it seems to me that what Helen created in that poem at the end was a holy instant. And then she went back to probably to her old mode of being fearful and afraid of Jesus's love, afraid of letting him in. And it seems to me like the strategy that we have of turning to Holy Spirit, when we're resistant to Jesus, we can turn to Holy Spirit. Like, you don't want to talk to dad, so you go to mom.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
But really, what it comes down to is being willing, the willingness to, gee, that felt pretty good, to welcome him in. Maybe I could try that again. And so when the string of holy instances get closer together, get more frequent, then we can begin to trust that.
Mm. I was thinking, like when I'm in an uncomfortable relationship with somebody, and then I'm like, well, let's go to a movie together, or let's go do something together. Let's go for a walk, or let's just do something instead of just sitting there with, staring at each other and trying to say something. But the idea being part of the way I break even in terms of an uncomfortability I have with somebody else is you do something together. You work on a project together. So the project in this case with Jesus is you don't have to come in and start loving me. And I'm not going to, the project in this case is you got to help me see this other person the way you see him. I mean, that's the project. That's the do, if there is a do in this. and so we do that together. We invite him in. And he shows us the way he's seeing the other person. So, yeah. I mean, it seems like he's tricking us, but not really. I mean, we're the ones that set all these judgments up to keep him away and never think to ask him to help us do this together. Help me see you the way he sees you. Yeah. That's good. So let's go back to the poem as a closing. Anybody else got any more comments before we close ship? Irene, please.
Thank you. Yeah, as I see it, between the spiritual process and the psychotherapeutic process, it's the process of we want to hold on to the familiar. And I think I'm just saying it, and I think everybody has said that in so many words. And that's where in psychotherapy, people resist. They don't want to let go of the familiar, quote unquote, the familiar in the world. So taking on the new relationship with Jesus, with Holy Spirit, takes time to familiarize and trust.
And trust.
The bottom line is trust, of course. But we resist what's not familiar. It's not comfortable.
Yeah.
Psychologically and spiritually. Go ahead.
No, that's a really good point. I mean, and the whole development of trust in the manual Yeah, I mean, we use the Holy Spirit, learning to trust Him, but really, we're learning to trust Jesus. We're learning not to be so resistant and to actually let Him in and trust Him more often.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And let go of, again, what I was saying earlier, the religious programs. I think David Dempsey was talking about the guilt. That's what's familiar. Well, what if I let go of guilt? What's God going to do to me? What, so it's um, on this level, there's a lot of taking a look at that and, of course, that undoing.
Right. The devil I know is better than the devil I don't know. Meaning Jesus is the devil. I mean, that's what we're calling him at that point.
Exactly. It's not, we've forgotten. It's a matter of remembering. But
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Irene. Sally, please.
Well, I wrote in my notes as we've been talking, we have to trust Jesus won't guide us off the cliff. I mean, He guided us here. Every one of us has been guided here. So, if He's guided us here, He's not going to take us to the precipice and have us leap. Well, maybe He'll have us leap into our real self and leave the false self. And that's where that fear is. This has been great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's quite the image. The image I had was, okay, Jesus, you take my brother up to the cliff, and if you don't throw him off, maybe I'll trust you a little more. Like, let me see what you do with Dave Van Dyke first.
You mean Saint Dave?
Oh God, that's right. He's already jumped.
I have one more thing that's so powerful in the link you sent today was a picture of Rumi and that quote, "The idol of yourself is the mother of all idols. To regard the self as easy to subdue is a mistake." The self is easy. It's not easy to subdue, and to think it's going to be easy is a mistake. When Jesus is helping us do that. Thank you.
Yeah, when you reread that, I was thinking like street talk, like that's the mother of everything. like not, I mean, Rumi meant it like that's the birthplace of all idols, but I mean it works too with the street talk. That's the mother of all idols. Yeah, that's good. Thanks, Sally. All righty, Stephen.
Yeah, for me, just as important as the Jesus part is, I have to keep looking at ego, and I have to keep letting ego know that I see it, and I have to keep letting ego know you're no longer invited, you're not welcome here, and do it in such a way that's comfortable for me. Because until I do that, I'm still running with the pack. I'm still going wherever he wants to go. In high school, my coach had a saying that if you can either fly with the eagles at night in the daytime, or you can hang out with the buzzards at night. And for me, I hang out with the buzzards at night a whole lot more than I think about Jesus. And I have to realize that, and I have to own it, because I want to be, I want to be in the love. I want to be peaceful. I know who the good guys are, but ego is relentless. Resistance is futile. Thank you.
Oh, that's a Myra thing. I'm not going to invite you, ego. You can't come. That's good. Well, I mean, there's a whole huge section in the course about inviting the Holy Spirit instead of the way we constantly invite the ego and then we pretend we didn't. The unrecognized invitation to the ego. Right. That's good. Thanks. All righty. Chris Jansen, you still there? Chris, where are you? Come back. Chris, the voice. Chris is actually like 8 feet tall. You wouldn't believe all the 8 feet tall people at the retreat. It was amazing. Stephen was blown away. He's tall.
I must have shrunk in your image, because when you first saw me, you said I was 12 feet.
Oh, okay, maybe a little bit. 2 feet. You're still good though.
Okay.
All right. You want to read Bright Stranger again, page 60, and we'll get quiet for a little bit.
Is that in the new book?
This one.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
I've ordered it. But for some reason,
you are
it didn't
so
come
busted.
in the 3 hours.
You just came down another foot.
Yeah, I ordered it. I ordered it today, and for some reason, it hasn't come yet.
Some reason. Must be, it could be resistance.
Yeah. Oh, good.
That's
Well,
good.
I got to tell you the truth. When I read the little part you put in for us to read, I was thinking, you come along, and then it's like we're resisting resistance, and it's just like a whole new layer of our resistance. And I just felt so defeated for a little while. I was like, oh, what am I doing this for? I was coming along, and now I got all this resistance. I resist resistance, and it's like, oh. But anyway.
Yeah, in the beginning, we're just stirring the pot. That's for sure.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, it'll get a little bit more crazy before it starts to get a whole lot better.
Yeah.
Probably. Doesn't have to, but usually works that way. Yeah.
I'll try to catch up by next week.
God, I hope so. All right. Thanks, Chris. Lisa, you want to read, please? Bright Stranger.
Sure.
All right.
Bright stranger. Strange was my love to me, for when he came, I did not know him, and he seemed to me to be but an intruder on my peace. I did not see the gifts he brought, nor hear his soft appeal. I tried to shut him out with locks and keys that merely fell away before his coming. I could not escape the gentleness with which he looked at me. I asked him in unwillingly and turned away from him. But he held out his hand and asked me to remember him. In me, an ancient name began to stir and break across my mind in gold. The light embraced me deep in silence till he spoke the word. And then at last I recognized my Lord.
Thanks. We'll get quiet for a little bit. And gently, gently, gently. Thanks, everybody. We broke in the new book.
Hey.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
See you, Tim.
Yeah.
And
Thanks,
everybody out
everyone.
there.
Thanks.
All right.
Great.
Next time.